go, Michael.
Let's
We
go.
are live. We have a great
Good
show
morning,
today.
Martin. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Thank you very much.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm doing good. How are you?
I could not be better, man. I am fully energized tonight.
Perfect.
And I just want to welcome everybody back to AGTP Daily.
Yeah.
You know, Martin, we go live every weekday. It's Thursday again at 11 a.m. Eastern time to discuss the most important tech stories in the U.S. And as I said, it's Thursday. It's hard to believe. I think there's Thursday every week. And luckily for us, every week on Thursday, we are also here. Yesterday, I got the date wrong. It's not wrong today. Thursday, June 25th,
Yes.
2026. I want to OpenAI Unveils its own custom chip. Did you know this was coming? I didn't know this was coming, but I think it makes sense. And I want to talk about this actually at scale. And then if we have time, I want to cover what we tried to cover yesterday. Anthropic launches Claude tag. And then later in the show, Martin, we are going to be joined by Suresh Mathew, the founder and CEO at Sedai, to explore how autonomous cloud optimization will help companies run AI infrastructure with lower cost, higher reliability, and less operational friction. And frankly, I'd love to know what, oh, come on, what's that guy's name? The CTO from Agoda. I'd love to know what he thinks about this, because remember, we had that whole conversation with him about on-prem or off-prem.
Yes.
Ital. Zeidner. I can't remember his last name. Anyway, but also the guy from David Hennemeyer Hansen, who literally posted for like a year and a half how he was taking everything on-prem, but maybe he didn't have the right tools. Anyway, so that's gonna be exciting as well. Let's talk about AI. I mean, OpenAI unveiling its own chip.
Let's do it.
Okay,
That's a big thing.
I think it's a gigantic thing. I love, I always say, like, I want to be in the meeting. I'm sure I've said this to you 100 times before, but like, I want to be in the meeting where they decided they wanted to name their first custom AI inference processor, co-developed with Broadcom and supported by Celestica. They called it Jalapeno. Can I ask, like, my tagline question, Martin? What are we doing?
Yeah, it's an interesting name. Let's say it.
Like, why did they just name it banana cake? Like, it makes no sense to me, except that maybe it's hot. Like, jalapenos are hot. That's what they were thinking. This chip's going to be really hot. Anyway, maybe. So Celestica, and Martin, this chip looks a lot like the types of chips that Cerebrus was talking about. If you saw a picture, you can see the picture of it, right? Of Sam Altman holding that chip with the guy from Broadcom.
Yes.
That's what that chip is meant to look like.
Oh, wow. It's really big.
Yeah, just a big wafer.
Yeah, I was really surprised. The first time I saw this picture, I was like, it's actually huge.
Yeah, so when I first looked at it too, I was like, it's huge, but also maybe they're just going to cut it into little pieces, but it's round, which means it's not uniform. Like, normally you think of a computer chip as a little square or a little rectangle, right?
Yes.
But it's hard to optimize rectangles inside of circles. But anyway, like, we'll see where that goes. But here's where it gets really interesting. I mean, the whole thing is interesting to me. This chip is designed specifically for LLM inference, not general purpose AI acceleration. Meaning, and this is where it's important, yeah, it's optimized for the moment when models like ChatGPT and future agentic products respond to real user requests at scale, right? So there are two things that are happening in the AI world, kind of at scale, right? The first one is training. And the NVIDIA chips that have been out there for a while now have been very, very good at model training. But inference is a completely different thing. It's like actually using the trained model to get answers.
Yes.
And NVIDIA chips are not optimized for that yet. So they're building, like, I think their Blackwell chips are meant to be optimized for inference. But here's the thing. OpenAI says that engineering samples are already running machine learning workloads in the lab at target production frequency and including their codecs and their Spark stuff. But here's the thing. You saw the thumbnail that I made for this, right? They're starting a chip war.
Yeah.
I think in a way they are. Right? Because now OpenAI is moving much more deeper into the infrastructure stack, right? So they have models now, they're building products. Yeah. They have memory stuff, networking, scheduling, all this kind of stuff. And they said that OpenAI says that Jalapeno was designed around specific memory movement, latency, and utilization patterns of large language models. So specifically just to do inference here.
That's interesting.
Okay. It's interesting. But they also said that in their early testing, and again, testing is always kind of this hybrid weird thing, right? Because you cannot test in a real environment.
Yes. Yeah, never.
Right, because you can't stress test it to pretend that like you're getting a billion requests at once.
And when things scale, it's again completely different. It's really hard.
Yeah. So again, they say that during the testing they have substantially better performance per watt. And again, you're always going to be talking about this stuff going forward about what is the energy being used or consumed in relation to the amount of compute that you're actually using, right? Because that matters.
Yes.
Do you understand what I mean? Right? Because it's like,
I mean, there was like a lot of talk about AI is actually at the end of the day just transforming electricity into tokens, right? And so this is what you say, right? Like how much energy are we actually using when we actually produce these tokens?
Max is already making fun of me for the round wafer. Thanks, Max. Don't worry, I'm coming to Canada, man.
In French.
I'm coming to Canada. I'm going to make fun of you in French. How do you like that? I like how Martin's not even on my side. He's like, yeah, we'll update Michael's knowledge. Fair enough.
Exactly.
Oh, man. Okay, good night.
Thank you, Michael.
Bye. Thanks for playing. You don't know this, Max, but I actually worked at a chip fab when I was in college. I did. I've actually been in a clean room for those of you scoring at home. Anyway, the point is that they're saying that these chips are actually, for their state-of-the-art systems, that these chips are performing way better from a power to output perspective. And here's the other thing too, Martin. They developed this chip really fast.
Okay.
So 9 months from design to manufacturing tape out. That's pretty fast.
Wow. Oh, wow.
And the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting was that they said that their own models helped accelerate parts of the design.
Of course. They kind of have to say that. Like part of the design is so wide, right? It could be applied to anything. Like maybe that's their own model who just chose the name, right?
Yeah, their own models. So what should we call this? Give me 10. Can you just see them asking ChatGPT? Now that we've designed this new round chip that Michael didn't know about, what should we name it? And they were just, oh, definitely jalapeno.
But I think there's a lot of really, really interesting thing here. I think the first one, as you put into the thumbnail, I don't know if they start the chip war, if it's starting right now, but if it is definitely a chip war, like definitely. And I think what is really, really interesting here is that it looks like everybody's trying to do something different, right? Like we talked to ARM, we talked to Cerebras, and now OpenAI who is doing chips optimized for inference. It looks like they all have a different take on that, right? And they kind of see the future of AI differently, and that's exactly my point of like this idea of AI v2, right? There is a lot of people who are building different things. Nobody pretty much agree on what is the future or how we are going to use AI tomorrow. It looks like there's a lot of people who have plenty of ideas and who are building and putting a lot of money and a lot of resources into building their own version of AI v2, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the first learning here. That's really, really interesting to me, is that it's another route, right? It's another route, it's another direction, it's something new, and this is really, really cool. And once again, it just add to the uncertainty around like, okay, how is AI going to perform in I mean, how we are going to use AI in a couple of years maybe. So I think that's the first point that we can discuss. And then the second point that we can discuss as well is, now I think I agree with OpenAI who really want to do everything compared to Anthropic who is so focused. Like a
Wait,
month ago.
What do you mean though? And what do you mean that Anthropic is more focused?
Like they are much more focused on just getting Claude to sell token to enterprises. Like besides that, they do nothing, right? Like they
don't have a phone plan. They don't have their own. Well, we don't know if they have their own chips plan. Because here's the other thing too, right? Is that if OpenAI is like Google, where you constantly know like what they're doing, Anthropic is like Apple, where they just don't talk about products that aren't released.
Except Mythos, except Fable.
Yeah, but they did release it, right? They're like, we're going to release this thing, and it's way too dangerous. Could you imagine Apple doing that? The iPhone Fold is way too dangerous. You don't want to buy it. Can you imagine?
That would be really funny. Yep. But let's say that Anthropic focus on the model itself, but like what we know publicly from them. A month ago, I was like, okay, you get to be focused, and what Anthropic is doing seems to be better. But now, after all the people that we have been speaking with over a month, and all the competition that's been organized, and all of this, like once again, I don't think the model is going to be the best way to make money 5 years from now.
It's not. It's not. It's not.
And because we don't know what is going to make money, we dare to try many, many, many things, right? Like we dare to launch a chip, we dare to do a cloud hosting, we dare to be a model, we
But you're
dare
not.
to
But you're
do.
not suggesting that OpenAI is going to try to become like a chip maker only.
No, no,
They're
no, no, no,
building
no, no,
custom-made
no,
chips
no,
to
no.
facilitate the high
Yeah,
performance of their
yeah,
own
yeah.
model, right?
Yeah, what I mean is like because we don't know what AI like how we are going to make AI sorry, how we are going to make money with AI in 5 years, because nobody knows. We get to try many different things and be in many different offering just to have more chance to win in 5 years. That's more my point. And so
Mm.
OpenAI, who is in the model business, great. Now they are in the chip business, then they should be in the cloud business, then they want to be in the phone business, they want to be in so many different surfaces. Okay, maybe to build a bigger company, but also to have more chances to win in 5 years, because once again, we don't know how we are going to make money with AI, and it's not clear that the models are going to be the one
So do,
finishing.
do you remember we had a conversation with Netflix about how all the platforms that do content were converging,
Yes.
right? So like Apple does podcasts, Apple does
Mhm,
movies.
mhm.
Apple actually does live now. Netflix
Yeah.
is doing live events. They now move
Yeah.
into podcasts and they move into video.
Yeah.
Amazon obviously does the same thing.
Mhm, mhm.
Don't you feel like these big frontier lab companies are also they're going to converge in the sense that one, they're going to all have to have their own data centers, otherwise they're going to
Yeah.
go away.
Mhm,
And if
mhm.
they have their own data centers, then they're going to run their own cloud businesses. And you
Yeah.
see this in reverse, right? Because let's use Google. So Google has Gemini.
Mhm.
They already have Google Cloud.
Yeah.
And
They are
they
going to
just
make.
said that these tensor processing units, which they were using to train and to build their own artificial intelligence business internally, now they're going to say, well, if there's constraints in the market for chips that run artificial intelligence stuff, we'll now build enough TPUs to sell to the rest of the market. So it's
Yeah.
converging across the board. Now, Anthropic hasn't said that they're going to do that stuff.
Mhm, mhm,
But I
mhm.
mean, did you know that that OpenAI was specifically going to be making chips before we talked about it today? Do you know what I mean?
I don't remember seeing something now. I
Neither
don't
do I. That's the
remember.
point.
Yeah.
Like maybe in
Yeah.
the back of my head, when I saw the
Yeah.
announcement, I wasn't surprised, but I was like, we have to talk about it.
Yes, 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 yes.
You know what I mean? But I wasn't
Yeah.
surprised by it because, again,
Mhm,
it's way better in my mind than them building a phone, which I think is
mhm.
never going to work.
Yep.
But on the other hand, can I talk about the phone a little bit if you don't mind?
Mhm, mhm.
Even though it feels slightly off topic, they're going to learn something by trying to design a phone.
And if Apple, is right with the on device AI, once again, like they may learn exactly what Apple needs in 2 years,
That's my
right?
point, though. So
Like,
they,
yeah.
they may learn
Mhm.
just enough, even if they
Exactly.
never release the phone, they may learn
Mhm.
just enough to understand like what Apple needs from a processing standpoint to be
Yep.
able to do this stuff on device.
Yes.
And if,
What
if
Samsung
that's the only
needs.
thing they learn, it's enough. Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. What Samsung needs, or Huawei. I mean, I don't think maybe they are going to work with Huawei, but if they learn just enough about that, and in 2 years, AI on device becomes the thing that we absolutely all love and use, they are going to be involved again, right? And now it looks like to me that they want to be involved everywhere, so they are not left out, right? Like they want
Yeah,
to be to every party, and they really want to be in every room. And so in case there's one room that becomes really, really hot, then they will be here already, right?
yeah,
And yeah, I mean, the more we talk to people, the more it looks pretty clear that the model is not going to be enough to win the AI
no.
race. And that's why, like a month ago, I was like, yeah, Anthropic has an amazing model. It's a super great. Just focus on that and and really like double down on that. But now it looks like the Chinese model are getting so much traction. Like especially now, right? Especially now, we see like so many great models coming out of China. We see Gemini, we see Apple who want to do something as well. We
Mhm.
see the different chip makers who want to do something different. Yeah, I think you get to be involved into everything. Like if OpenAI and Anthropic thought, they got to $1 trillion valuation and now it's fine, they are okay, the business model like in other words, I don't think they reached product market fit yet,
No,
basically,
no way.
right?
And can
Like
I say this too?
they are just
All
starting.
of the conversations that we've been having about chips before
Yeah.
today, let's say, I mean, not counting AI Enterprise, right? We spent all that time talking to Cerebras. But all the other conversations we've had about chips has been around NVIDIA and people
Yes.
competing with NVIDIA. Now, NVIDIA has made commentary over the past 6 months that they are going to move into the inference style chips. But for right now, most of NVIDIA's chips are used for training, right? For
Yeah.
acceleration.
Mhm.
Now, it's interesting to me that OpenAI has announced this chip in conjunction with Broadcom, but saying that they didn't explicitly say they're not going to use this for training, but they did say these chips are for inference. And what it means is that they're still leaving this market alone on the training side for NVIDIA. But I think the more significant thing here is this, and that is that they believe, and I think the market is corroborating this as well, that, and I think it's kind of obvious, but we should state this out loud, and that is that inference itself is going to become way more important than model training, right? The answers that you get, excuse me, from the model is going to be more, it's at some level, is going to take more compute than the amount of compute that it takes to actually train these models.
Yeah.
And according to Deloitte, um, they project that inference workloads are going to account for roughly two-thirds of AI compute in
Oh, wow.
2026, while the inference optimized chip market is expected to see $50 billion. And right now, it's a little bit less than 50-50, with training still taking up more of the pie for investment.
Mhm.
That's going to
Interesting.
change. So
Okay.
the idea here is that OpenAI is not going to compete with NVIDIA.
Mhm.
They don't want to. They don't want to be in the training business. They want to make sure that the inference that they're producing from their models is actually better and optimized. That's the thing too, right? Because their costs are going to get lower. This is
Mhm.
one of the things that Apple talks about too with their M chips, right? And frankly, their A chips on the phone. And that is because they're not super power hungry,
Mhm.
they're more efficient
Yes.
because they can work harder with a smaller power footprint.
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
one of the other things that OpenAI is trying to accomplish, because again, at scale, any minimization or any any minimization of power usage means a drop down of costs as well,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
To produce the same level of inference, and because they're measuring the amount of inference in wattage,
Mhm.
right, the amount of power used, that actually becomes really important.
And because data centers is a resource that's really hard to get right now, right? Like they just can't build enough of them. Being more
Mm.
efficient is a huge advantage, right? Like if you can do 20% more, 30% more, maybe
Oh, for
40%
sure.
more, just because you have better inference chips, that's gonna give them a massive advantage, right? Like not only on the cost side, but also on the market expansion side, right? Like right now, Anthropic has so much problem with compute, right? Like I know Max, if I remember correctly, you are using Claude as well. And if there is anyone else in the chat who use Claude, we have all had so many problems in the last few days, right? Like API limits, outage. Like in the last few days, it's back to the nightmare of like 2 months ago.
Oh,
And I
really?
would actually say that I think Opus is getting also very like more stupid right now. I don't know if you have the same experience, guys. Tell me in the chat. But my Opus, I think, is going back to once again the problem we had 2 months ago, where Anthropic had a compute problem, and so they lowered the intelligence that they give us through the models to actually control the level of inference that they have to produce for everyone. And I think they are doing the same thing here, and I've seen that I think in the last few days. Well, this is never happening with OpenAI. I don't think so.
I don't feel
So
it. I
if they
don't feel
can,
it at all, actually.
yep. So if they can again, like be more efficient, be able to do more inference, be able to get that cheaper, more efficient, and all of that, yeah, it's going to be a huge advantage compared to the others, especially on the enterprise side, because it's hard to do to switch models. It's not something that you can do overnight. Right now, it looks like everybody, sign up to multiple models and try
Mm.
everything. But at the end of the day, I think you have a favorite. You have one that works better. You have
Yeah, yeah.
one that you understand better. And once you have one that works, especially in tech, you don't want to change your entire workflow. It's so annoying. You have to retest everything. You have to,
Well, so that's the thing. I was
yeah,
telling you today, Martin, before we
yeah,
started recording, that I've been testing Gemini over the past few
yeah,
days, using the
yeah.
same prompts that I've been using for a couple of months now on
Mhm.
ChatGPT. I'm just used to the output that ChatGPT gives me, and in a way,
Yeah.
I trust it because I kind of know what to expect with it. The
Mhm,
Gemini
mhm,
stuff is actually really good, but I have not yet made the decision as to whether I'm going to switch over
mhm,
because I think it's just natural human inclination to just not want to change. You just get
mhm.
used to something, and this is true at scale. I think for big organizations, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's true at scale, and so that's why like I don't know how patient people are going to be with Anthropic and with Opus if it's still there's some problem like this. And OpenAI has been invested a lot of money into fixing these problems, right?
Yeah.
Or at least not having them, right?
Mhm.
And so that's good. That's a good thing, first of all, for distributing AI, but also I really like this idea of diversification of their business, right? It's I think it's really expensive though. That's why they probably raised like 130 billion, right? Because they need so much money to be everywhere like this, right?
Yeah, I mean,
But
who knows how much it costs to like develop your own chip, even if it's in
Mhm,
conjunction with another company. But think about this too, Martin.
mhm.
OpenAI now is going to be, because they own the chip, and this is very similar to what Apple has been doing for years, right?
Yes,
Apple doesn't have to like build every little component into their machine. They just build this stuff in that's going to optimize the way that chip gets used.
exactly, and that's super cool, right? When you
And
can,
it's super cool because you have complete
Mhm.
control over the entire front to back performance of your thing. And this is something
Yeah,
that ChatGPT is going to have, or OpenAI is going to have. But again, let's think about this in broader terms. Right now, and they think some of these chips are going to be being produced by the end of 2026. That's just not that far away. But more
Mhm.
importantly, Google has been using its TPUs forever. Apple is in the process of trying to adjust its ARM based chips to handle their own artificial intelligence as well. Meta is working with ARM directly and already has designed, right? So ARM's first chip that they're producing themselves, where they're not selling the IP, is actually built in conjunction with Meta. Meta's going to use this for their AI stuff. And in a way, it feels like the only team that doesn't have a dance partner here, the only team that cannot and that doesn't have enough compute and that can't control and customize the hardware to be as efficient as it possibly can is Anthropic.
yeah, definitely. Definitely on the compute and chip side. That's why I was saying, like, it looks like Anthropic is really betting everything on the model, on the token sale on the enterprise level, like what they are
Mm,
really, really successful at, right? Especially in the last 6, 12 months, right? Like they had crazy growth, right? And their product is amazing, everything works
mm.
well, no problem at all. But long term, I don't know, maybe they see something that we don't, right? But it looks like they are the ones who are betting heavily on the model is going to be the moat. The model is going to be enough, right?
Mm.
And we are going to build a massive company selling tokens. That's the bet that they are making.
And isn't it also the case, Martin? Remember, we always use Amazon as the example of like they just kept investing in the business,
Yes.
investing. But as their revenue grew, it became obvious that they were going to be able to turn a profit because
Mm,
they weren't going to have to continue to make investments at the same scale, the same scope, and the same size as they did in the earlier parts of their business. Now, we already know, and Sam Altman already made fun of Anthropic for not having enough compute and enough sort of data center contracts, right?
yeah.
That's the first thing. So that means that over time, as those resources remain constrained, from a cost perspective, it's likely, although not 100% for sure, but it's likely that Anthropic is just going to have to pay more money to have the same amount of compute as OpenAI. But the second thing is, because OpenAI is also developing their own chips, they're going to have more leverage over their own cost curve on the chip side as well. And as the usage increases, their ability to use low power chips that are customized directly to the hardware that they want to use for the inference that they want to output means that from a cost perspective, they may be able to outrun Anthropic as well. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, completely. That's why this diversification strategy may definitely pay off, right? So okay, we are making fun of them when they announce the phone, but when they announce the data center, when they announce chips, it's made sense, right? And so that's why
Mm.
maybe once again, maybe the phone they are going to learn something, maybe they know something that we don't. But I really like this diversification strategy much more than what Anthropic is doing, right?
Mm.
And in 2, 3, 5 years, I feel like you have much more chance to win if you bet on multiple things as of today in AI, because once again, we have no idea what AI is gonna look like. Even in 6 months, really, but we don't know what it's gonna look like. So
Yeah, we don't know. We're 6 hours
yeah.
from now. We don't know what it's going to look like. But I
Mhm.
will tell you this: Bitcoin is probably going to be lower. It doesn't really matter. I just want to
and
see if any.
and
I just want to see
and
if anybody in
SpaceX
the
as
chat
well.
would respond to that. Say that again, Martin.
And SpaceX as well.
SpaceX is
you
already
know,
lower by almost 2%. Sorry, go ahead.
you know what OpenAI could do? Like they could do something completely different than Anthropic, which is not IPO right now. They could wait until they have compute, until they have cheap contracts. Like they could wait a little bit to look much, much, much stronger. Because look, like what what SpaceX has sold to the world, right? Is not their revenue, is their massive infrastructure and the potential that the infrastructure is going to give them. Just before the IPO, they announced the deal with Google at around $1 billion per
Mm.
month. They announced the deal with Anthropic at around $1 billion per month as well. So they are doing so many different things, right? And there are a lot of things that are not proven yet, but there are some stuff that are making money and are starting. But they have rockets, they have launchers, they have data centers, they have so many stuff going on, right? So maybe
If
OpenAI,
rockets.
like maybe OpenAI could do the same thing. You know what? They could say, look, guys, we don't IPO right now. We let Anthropic do their thing, right? But we wait a year or two until everything else is ready. We have data centers, we have chips. That's same
Mm.
situation as SpaceX. We are way stronger. We are everywhere. And even maybe our revenue will be lower, but the potential and the story we can sell may be much, much, much bigger, right?
So do you think that OpenAI is going to get into the rocket business or the data center and space business?
I mean, why not at this point?
Could you imagine if they came out with like a rocket?
Yes, at this point, I mean, we get to try everything, yeah. I think
what
that's their mood right now. We get to try everything, so
what would
I
Philip
wouldn't be
do?
surprised. I would not be surprised that tomorrow OpenAI start talking about data centers in space and they acquire StarCloud, for example, right? They just raised at a $1 billion valuation, so it's not that
Mm.
expensive for OpenAI. And then tomorrow they enter the space business. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. And then once they do all of that and the story is super strong, they IPO after that. So they wait a little bit.
So I don't disagree with you actually, and I would make the
Mhm.
case that so you'll see this you'll see where this comes in a moment, Mark. But I want to
Mhm.
make sort of a pop culture reference, if you don't mind.
Okay, tell me.
And this is a little bit before your time, but some people in the chat will probably remember this. In the 80s and 90s, and frankly, even in the early 2000s, there was a big competition going on between Arnold Schwarzenegger, right, and Sylvester Stallone.
Mm.
They both wanted to be like the biggest, baddest action heroes carrying the most guns and blah, blah, blah. And as part of their competition, there was this script that was offered to Arnold Schwarzenegger that was terrible.
Okay.
And Stallone was like, "Hey, how come this thing wasn't offered to me?" And Stallone just like, I mean, and Schwarzenegger talked up this script. It was a terrible script, apparently. Talked it up and talked it up. And the more he talked it up, the more jealous Stallone got.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, Schwarzenegger did not want to do this movie, but he pretended like he did, and he pulled out. And Stallone did the movie, and it was a bomb, a gigantic bomb. And Schwarzenegger like sat on the sidelines and just laughed his ass off because he just like psyched Stallone into doing this, into making a bad movie by just making him feel like he was left out. So it was a little bit of a FOMO trick here, right?
Okay.
So why am I talking about this? Well, I mean, what's the difference between Schwarzenegger and Stallone and OpenAI and Anthropic?
Mhm, mhm,
They
mhm,
both want to be the biggest action hero. They want to have the most guns. They want to have the biggest explosions. They want to be the most powerful people in their little thing, right?
mhm, mhm, mhm,
Wouldn't it be funny or even strategically interesting if OpenAI filed for an IPO
mhm,
just to get Anthropic to go public
mhm.
and just have it crash in the context. Because every day when we do this recording, I watch the SpaceX stock price.
Yeah, that it is an interesting strategy. It
You
is
know
a
what I mean? Because
really
if
interesting
because
strategy.
again, the key thing here, right, is that Anthropic is not as diversified, and even
Yeah.
if they're more disciplined, we can say, for better or for worse, if they go out into the public markets and it crashes, their ability to then raise enough money to solve all of the compute, the throughput, the chip design, all the other things where they're falling behind potentially could be really problematic for them.
Yeah. No, it's true.
And
Mhm.
OpenAI could sit on the sidelines and just go, psych. We decided not to go public because we can continue to raise money in the private markets at a higher valuation. Nobody gets angry. We watch you crash and burn. We
Mhm,
watch
mhm, mhm,
SpaceX crash and burn. And while you're doing that, because we focused on inference,
mhm,
okay, and because we have more leverage over our cost curve than you do because we took care of our compute
mhm.
early. We locked in our compute costs early. You had to pay higher prices for it. Now we build our own chips, so that means that our hardware can be highly optimized to make inference. Because once you start doing inference, the more it gets used, every inference interaction is like an ongoing compute cost.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that means that that inference is like a margin and
Mhm.
a pricing thing and an availability issue. You see this yourself when you're using Opus. You're like, it's getting stupid, but not because the model is getting stupider, but because their ability to serve inference to you in a way that's efficient, you feel like is going down.
Yes. 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 Yes.
So then imagine if OpenAI waits like a year or 6 months or 9 months and then goes, now we're going to IPO because everybody else has crashed and burned. And the only viable company left over with a full suite
Mhm.
of AI, with a full stack of AI to offer you
Yeah.
is us.
And then one more thing that they should do. They should release GPT 5.5 open source the day after Anthropic IPO.
Yeah, exactly.
and
Exactly.
then this is insane. Then if they do something like that, they have a chance to become so big and so dominant, right?
Well, yeah.
Because
Because the only way that Anthropic makes money is by charging tokens for their model, at
exactly
least as of today.
as of today, yeah, and it doesn't look like they do anything else, right? And it looks like the entire world go into another direction, and there's only Anthropic who is going to like who double down on that, and most of our revenue comes from this, but nobody else looks like they are believing into this is the future, including us, to be honest. I don't believe the token sale is going to be the future. I think this is just going to disappear, and yeah,
Yeah, I'm already on record as saying this. Like, there's no
yes,
other business model that does that charges you for compute. Like, that's
yeah,
ridiculous.
no, this is, and like everything needs to be better at every level of the stack, and this is going to help actually like change the business model so then it gets cheaper and more efficient for all the businesses.
Do,
Yeah.
do you think that OpenAI, because they know they were developing their own chip, they know that they think that their cost structure is going to be lower than Anthropic's, and they know that they were going to develop a custom chip that's going to work on their own hardware design, so it's going to be way more efficient.
Mhm.
Do you think that that was part of their decision-making process, the reason why they never did or announced the idea that they were going to do the same pricing model that Anthropic had, which at the end of the day, Anthropic did not roll out? But because they believe that their costs are
Mm.
going to go down faster than Anthropic's, they didn't need to change their subscription model
Mm.
into this sort of API-based token model.
So it looks like from day one of this like war between the two, it looks like OpenAI is way more confident in their one capacity to lose money, right? So which means like
Yeah.
subsidizing the token for the subscription, and even if they lose money on the subscription, that's okay, right? That's the first thing. They are way more confident about that. And the second, the compute side, right? Like they believe they can serve everybody, and it's going to be okay. And that was like the two arguments for Anthropic to actually say, okay, we are going to charge you now through the API cost, even if you pay for the subscription.
Right.
Like the all you can eat thing basically is over. That was both for compute and also for revenue, and that's really the two things that OpenAI seems to be much more confident about, right? So
Yeah.
so maybe you're right. Maybe they are that confident because they know that they built all the stack behind that Anthropic is not doing, right? And they build the chip, they build the data centers, they build the entire thing. And maybe I feel, Michael, like the next move for OpenAI is to launch their own computer. Like they
What
should do
like
a
AMD
deal
did, yeah.
like with AMD or even Nvidia. Like they both have like the dedicated AI PC, right? Like the Nvidia Spark or the AMD, I don't remember the name. But if they do a deal like this with a PC maker and they start optimizing now that they made chips, like okay, do a small version of jalapeno. Actually, that's funny because jalapeno, I think, is pretty spicy.
Jalapeno.
Okay, in French we say jalapeno.
Yeah, which is weird because you never pronounce the J and now you're pronouncing it. What are you guys doing?
But I think jalapeno,
Jalapeno, like it's an H.
is actually pretty spicy. So I think the next chip, Michael, that they're gonna do for the OpenAI PC is going to be a less spicy chili.
What do you think it's going to be? Bell pepper? Like it's just going to be
Pepper, something like that. Something like that. But it would make ton of sense, right? Like to just do a deal with Dell or, with AMD or one of these guys who manufacture PC at scale and just say, look, guys, we are going to make an AI PC by OpenAI, right? And that would be really, really cool. That would put them into the world of on-prem, basically, right? Like on
yeah,
okay, you can
stuff, yeah.
and on device. If they do that, I take a massive bet that they open source GPT 5.5. Just that's the next step. If they go the on-prem route with a PC or a phone, then the next step is just to open source their GPT 5.5.
So in a way, and again, not to make too many cultural references, but I feel like these are things that people understand easily. If you ever watch like a great Grand Slam tennis finals match, right? You see like the longer the rally gets, do you know what I mean? Like one guy keeps hitting to the forehand, keeps hitting to the backhand, keeps hitting to the backhand, keeps hitting to the backhand. And the guy on the other side of the court is just thinking, when is that ball going to go cross court to my forehand? He's always thinking this, right? And I think this may be one of the things that OpenAI is potentially doing to Anthropic. They keep hitting it to the backhand until they're like, yep, now we're going to open source this thing and we're not going to go public. And you thought we were going to go cross court, but we're not. You know what I mean? Like it feels like they're volleying back and forth. And one of them is building like a whole different array of tools, meaning things they can do with the ball. And the other guy just has a forehand.
Yes. If they do that, that would be a really interesting strategy. And I think they can win massive market shares if they do that. Like really, if they launch tomorrow a PC and they open source GPT 5.5,
it's a nightmare for Anthropic.
It's a nightmare for Anthropic, right?
Because their cost base goes higher and their revenue base collapses.
And now, all of a sudden, on the market, you have a model that's as good as yours, that's free, basically. So
that's what I mean.
Not everybody will be able to run it. So that's why they need the PC, right? Like they need to make people able to run something like GPT 5.5 locally, and then they can dominate. And I think at some point they will have to, because that's the only way they can compete with the Chinese. That's the only way.
So that was the point I was going to make, is that theoretically, every one of the Chinese models is not being like, does not have like Trojan horses built in at the request of the Chinese government, theoretically, right? Like they're just running big LLMs in the same way that Anthropic and OpenAI are. But there is a bit of a trust issue out there, right? Because there's a perception problem. But those are the best open source models in the world right now. And there is a tendency to say the cost is cheaper and, geopolitics be damned, I'm going to use DeepSeek, or I'm going to use Qwen, or I'm going to use Kimi for straightforward things where there's no sort of national security problems involved. I'm happy to use it to do repetitive tasks. But if OpenAI then says, fine, our model, which is marginally better, but at some point they're all going to be the same. I think they're just going to be commodified, right? Do you know what I mean? Like a Toyota or a Honda, like which one are you going to buy? They're basically the same thing. It's just like which one makes you feel better to drive, kind of thing.
Yes.
But if they open source it, then you don't have any of the geopolitical problems or any of the other issues that you have. And that's going to explode the usage, I think, of
Massive.
ChatGPT, no matter what number the model is. Yeah.
Massive, 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 massive. And they will be able to compete for real with the Chinese if they do that, right? Because
Yeah.
once again, like we can have another DeepSeek moment anytime, right? Like where
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Chinese
Yeah.
just release something amazing and then all of a sudden everybody use them, right? And I would say actually right now, there is more and more market shares that are going towards China. A lot of people are
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
maybe not installing the models locally because that's still very expensive, but at least using the API through Z, through DeepSeek, like through OpenRouter, right? And
Yep.
so it can create like an entire market basically for the cloud provider like AWS to actually install DeepSeek,
Well,
install
Microsoft already
Z.
did that with DeepSeek, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're right. And so then, instead of buying a $5,000 computer and install the model locally, we can just pay a $20 subscription and
Exactly.
access a cloud server, right? That's the exact same model that we use to run websites. Like
Yeah.
e-commerce
Yeah.
websites
Yeah.
use a lot of compute, right? It's not something simple to host,
No.
especially at scale, but
No,
we know how.
I've never hosted my own website on my local
Yeah,
machine. Never.
and
It's
we
stupid.
never do that, right? We like
No, it's stupid.
nobody buys a machine to host a website, right? And same
Not
for an
anymore.
app or like for something like this. And that's because we can have a $10, $20, $50 cloud plan, and that just makes much more sense for this type of usage. I see the exact same thing happening on the AI side if the cost of the hardware can go down. Because if the cost of hardware on the consumer side get down, then it means on the business side, on the enterprise side, on the cloud provider side, it
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
also go down. They have much more scale and they are going to get like super, super great pricing. And so that's why like if you can imagine a provider like take one that is not one of the big three, take like somebody like OVH, for example, in France, or Ionos in Europe, GoDaddy. Like guys like GoDaddy, for example, who are selling website right now, basically.
GoDaddy.
Tomorrow, they can install GPT 5.5 on their servers infrastructure, launch a $20 plan, and you have an all you can eat model, basically, right?
Mm.
And so now not only you increase like the number of people who are going to use it, but more importantly, you build a massive distribution network. Because now you have GoDaddy, Ionos, OVH, all of these guys who will be able to sell for you, basically. And now
Yeah.
that's really cool, right? And this is what's gonna happen with DeepSeek, this is what's gonna happen with Zed and with all of these guys, right? Like they are going to be distributed by the cloud providers, and this is going to be a really strong offering on the market. And the
Mhm.
only way that OpenAI and Anthropic can compete with that is by open sourcing their model as well. There is no other way.
Mm.
So I don't know what they think about it. I'd love to ask them the question: are you going to open source your model at some point?
Do you want
Do
to make a
you?
bet?
I think they do. I think that's the plan.
This is why you and I can't bet on this because I think we
Yeah.
both agree.
Yeah, I think I don't see a world where they don't do it. I mean, except if they want to die, then okay, just stay alone
They
in
don't want to
your
die. Sam Altman's way too competitive,
yeah.
and he doesn't want to see Dario win. He definitely doesn't want to see anybody else win. You know, one of the other things we should talk about, Martin, is like
Yeah.
what other signals
Hmm.
are we going to get from this? Do you know what I
Okay.
mean? Like, what should we look for? I want to talk about. I do want to talk about Anthropic launching Claude Tag because I do
Hmm.
think it fits into some of the other topics that we've covered over the past few months.
Okay. Yeah.
And another service that they're offering in a way that's very similar to what we saw Salesforce do with
Yes.
Slack. So I want to get to that, yeah.
Yeah. Let's
But
do that.
before we get there, I think there's some stuff that we have to be on the lookout for as it relates to what OpenAI is doing as they roll out these new chips.
Okay.
The
Tell
first
me.
is like, how good are they? Like, how good are they really? What are they comparing to? What are the benchmarks, right? So they said that, you know, from a power perspective, they said that they were super good, but when we talked about this, but just to say it explicitly, there's a big difference between testing something in a lab and actually deploying it at scale. And just because you can have this chip work in the lab really well
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work super well across gigawatt style data centers, right? So we
Yeah.
have to make sure that like this stuff that they're actually announcing actually works. Does that
Yes,
make
yes, yes,
sense?
yes, 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 yes. That's for sure. They need to make it work. It looks like they are on the right track to make it work because they have all
It
the
does.
access, right? But and plus,
But
like
who
they,
knows, right? Because these chips
yeah,
have not been rolled out to anybody yet. The,
no,
the other the other thing to watch as well is like, is the product better because it's using these chips?
mhm,
Do you know what I mean? Like, is it actually functionally better? Do you get faster responses? And frankly, do you get better responses? Is the inference better?
yes,
Right? Um, and the last thing is their chip going to work with, like, if they're actually in the chip business in the same way that Google said that they were going to release those TPU chips, their tensor processing units, to the rest of the market because they can work with other LLMs.
mhm.
OpenAI is saying that these chips will work with other LLMs, but will they? And will this help some of them solve the sort of constraints that exist in the NVIDIA space because NVIDIA, again, can't produce them fast enough? And then where are the roadblocks here? Where are the speed bumps? Is it on TSMC's side
Mhm.
or some other fab that's going to be able to make these chips? But these are things that I think we all have to pay attention to before we say that this is a huge success or could be a huge success, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes, no, for sure, for sure, for sure. For now, we just say, hey, we just made in our own chips, right? Like we don't know if it's true, we don't know if it works, we don't know anything. So we will see, we'll see. But I would say I like the idea. I think they have all the access. They have a strong partner who can help them do something good. I think there is a chance that it can definitely work. And if it works, next step, launch a PC. Next step, open source everything, and wait a year to do IPO. And it's gonna be a really interesting boxing match between the two.
It is, or a tennis match, any way you want to look at it. Look, I think, Martin, from a communications, just from a strategic perspective,
Yeah.
OpenAI should hire you and me to tell them what to do. What do you think?
I think we should be on the board, my dear, because we have
We
some
should.
amazing strategy, like business strategy.
We
We
should.
should help them there.
You can just dial 1-800 undercover media to reach either one of us.
Actually, don't do that because the number doesn't work. But you will
Doesn't
find
work.
my email address
Exactly.
in the
Martin at
description below.
undercovermedia.io. Send Martin an email if you want to have the
Exactly.
benefit of Martin and Michael being on your board of directors. One more thing. Jalapeno is going to be built on TSM3's 3 nanometer process. I think this is actually important. This is the same sort of cutting edge technology that Apple uses with its latest chips.
Okay.
So it's not like some previous generation thing. And that circular thing is about 840 millimeters squared. It's about as physically large as a chip can be made.
Okay.
So these are cutting edge designs. Is the only point that I want to make.
Okay. So they are already doing great, basically.
Yeah.
They are not like
But let's see if they can be produced at scale and if they can work at scale and if all the other things we just talked about actually come to fruition. Yeah.
maybe they are going to announce like a consumer chip as well soon. Like because right now like that's like a data center chip, right, for themselves.
Well, it's an
Maybe
inference chip. Yeah.
yeah, that's an inference chip. Like maybe that can work on my Mac Mini or my big PC, right? And that's what I mean by consumer chip. Maybe they're gonna be like, okay, now that we learned a lot, let's just do something for the consumer as well.
Well, I mean, if they come out with their own hardware,
Yes,
maybe.
yes. So that's really interesting move. There's a lot of potential after that. Let's see what they do and what they announce in the next couple of months. It'll be
Okay.
really interesting.
Let's spend a little bit of time because we do have a guest coming in about 12 to 13 minutes. Let's talk a
Yes.
little bit about Anthropic launching Claude Tag.
Mhm.
So what is this? They're turning Claude from a private assistant into a shared workplace participant. I mean, I don't know how else to explain this, right? But it lets employees bring Claude into Slack conversations. This is why I want to talk about it by typing at Claude.
Mhm.
So it's almost like it's becoming, a teammate.
Mhm.
And we've seen this on, like, Salesforce did this, right?
Yes.
Where in Slack itself, they have a Slack bot that actually essentially does this. But it's interesting that that Anthropic is trying to build the same thing, because now what they're saying is it can read through threads, it can understand the context, and it can break tasks into pieces. And the other thing that they're also saying is you can actually give it tasks from an agentic AI perspective, it can go away and do those things and come back right into the chat in Slack and tell you what has and has not been done.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
And because employees are already using AI in some kind of their side conversations, the Claude tag moves that into a place now where everybody can have access to it, into a public workflows, and where like your teammates can actually see what you've, in cases where you want it to be the case, what you've actually asked Claude to do. Right. So that actually makes it really interesting, because then you can share this with your other colleagues, with your other employees. And this is where stuff really gets interesting. Right? They can see not just what you've asked, but what Claude answered.
Yeah.
It's just really interesting. And the other thing too is they're betting here that AI stops being something that you go to. Do you know what I mean?
That's
Where you
interesting.
like have to bring up Gemini, you have to bring up Claude, or you have to bring up ChatGPT, and then it just becomes a teammate
That's here basically.
that's there and just gets involved in everything you're working on. And
So
that's interesting. Sorry, go ahead. And it's always on. It's in every channel if you want it to be there, right? And it's on every surface where you work, and that to me starts getting really interesting. And again, we saw this with what Salesforce did with Chatbot,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
For Slackbot, excuse me. Sorry, go ahead.
So maybe for the audience who don't know what Salesforce Slackbot is doing, because it was really an interesting idea when we talked to the team and they explained to us, right? Like basically here is the basic idea of Salesforce Slackbot. You are in Slack, okay, and your entire team is on Slack, and so you send information to your teammate, to your colleagues, like your colleagues do the same thing, and then that compound into a lot of information that is stored in Slack, right? So
you also give Slack access to your email.
So wait, let's just stop at like the Slack part first, because this is really, I think, to me, like the most interesting part, because all the information that's going on into your company, what Bob did yesterday, the problem you had there, the customer feedback that you had to work on, or this task that your boss gave you, everything is into Slack, right? And so which means instead of, as you said, Michael, go into Claude and then say, hey, can you actually do this? Once again, this task is already in Slack. Then also, instead of creating a knowledge base, instead of copy pasting all the information from Slack into a memory or into a knowledge base for Claude or ChatGPT or whatever AI you use to actually have the information, once again, the information is already in Slack. So the idea of Salesforce Slackbot was like, you know what, let's just make something very, very simple. We just give access to Slack, really to the AI of Slack. Every messages, all the content that is there, we just give that to the AI. And then boom, the AI can use all the conversation of everyone across the organization to actually know what's going on. So I think that's the same idea here, right? Like that's really the same idea. It's just like instead of copy pasting, instead of giving AI explicit information, we just say to him, okay, here are my Slack, go there, read through everything, and so now you know as much as I do, basically. And so that just remove friction into how do we actually create the context for the AI.
Yeah, because now there's a I don't want to say a chatbot, but now there's an employee out there, a colleague out there that understands the entire context of every conversation that you're having and that everybody else is having as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And there's this like idea of, instead of just asking that, what's the right way to say this? Instead of just asking a chatbot to like, here's a question I have for you. It's more like, why don't you be part of this meeting or part of this conversation? And that's a big difference, right?
Yeah, then just do this thing, right? Like if exactly, instead of saying Bob from accounting told me to do this, you have to go there and get the data and blah 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 blah. That's your prompt. No, then you just type at Claude and then you just say do it. And then Claude already have all the data because he already have access to Slack, right? So to all the conversations. So he knows that Bob from accounting asked you something, basically. And he also knows all the history of your conversation, so you can get all the information, you can get all the data, and then this is why you connect to Gmail, you connect to your CRM, you connect to everything else. So then you can actually pull all the data that he needs, do the work, put the result of the work at the right place, and that feels like a magic, right? But at the end of the day, it's really just like how you build the context, the data layer for the AI to actually know what's going on. This is really the most important part here, and
Right.
that's one of the hardest parts to solve with AI. When it's external to Slack, for example, when you have to build this knowledge base or this memory system or all of these things, it's really complicated, right? And it's not something that you can do quickly. And so I think here they are trying to solve that problem.
So you want to know what else is actually really interesting, Martin? And
Tell me.
you may not be able to understand this because you've never worked at a big company, but it's just making me think like you always had this problem of like, let's say Bob quit and left.
Yeah.
All of his sort of tribal knowledge with him. And the thing about what would happen, they would check on his email right away.
Okay.
Which is dumb, right? Because there's a ton of information in there that's super important. There's a ton of context, ton of conversations he's had, and a ton of like just info about what he was working on.
Yes.
And if you think about this idea that organizational memory itself, because that's what it is, it's a memory that the organization has.
Yeah.
The way it's worked up until you just throw away, shut it down. It's part of the conversation. And AI or some bot knows about all of it. If it sits in Slack, in this case, it's Claude Tag, but in other cases, it could be, Salesforce's Slack bot.
Yeah.
Well, now if Bob leaves, it's not like a single point of failure anymore because you have all of his information.
True. That's a very good point. And so that's why I think the next place to actually build that is in Gmail, right? Like your email history also have so much information.
That's already possible. I think if you go ask somebody important at Google, there must be hooks or APIs where Gemini can completely understand what's happening in your Gmail. You just have to give it access to it.
Maybe.
It makes no sense that those things cannot be easily connected, that they hadn't thought about this over time. Because remember, they already do sentence completion for you, right?
Yeah.
And then all that's and they've been doing that for years, and all that's run by some kind of artificial intelligence. My guess is it's some strain of Gemini anyway.
Yes, no, for sure. But maybe making it really explicit, like the AI is actually learning from all of your emails to actually know what's going on, right? Which maybe it's working right now. That's right. But right now we don't have like a Gemini tag, for example, right? And I think this is like the most obvious next step for that, to do that in emails as well. But I think that there's one big caveat, Michael, for that.
What's the caveat?
Like the cost. It's going to be insane. It's just going to be absolutely insane to build this context for the AI. I mean, like, just think about the number of tokens that you need to just go through, because I have given access to my Gmail, to my AI, right? Because I have a super high volume of emails. And just to be able for the AI to search information into like just one email thread, this burns tons of token, like really a lot of token, because the text is massive. Like it's just massive, and it gets big really fast. Like,
so how much do we pay right now for sentence completion in our Gmail?
So we pay nothing right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they figured out a way to make it economically viable and still charge you nothing for it. This is one of the geniuses of Alphabet or of Google. Yeah.
Yes. So, but I don't think right now Anthropic is doing another way than the normal token that they sell you. Like they just scrape everything basically and then put that into the context, because there is no fine tuning yet. There is no custom model that you build for your company. So right now, basically, it's just an LLM code, right? The same, like Claude P, like the very simple LLM code where the context is your entire message history. And that context is just going to get massive and massive and massive and bigger and bigger and bigger. And now we are talking prompts that are going to be like a book close to that, right? Like it's going to just get massive.
Again, just think about it, Martin. I can't remember the number of times my boss at Goldman or Morgan Stanley came over to me and sat with me for 30 minutes telling me like an idea they had for something they wanted to implement. And that was essentially a prompt for Michael, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And because I had all the institutional knowledge, they didn't need to explain to me all the background unless I didn't know. And then they would, some of that 30 minutes was going, here's the things you don't know.
Yeah.
Now, how do you think we should approach this? But in this context, now this is all happening digitally and electronically, and because it has all of the context, as you've mentioned, it makes the ability to execute this stuff inside of Slack actually way easier than it would be just to come over to my desk and spend 30 minutes telling me what to do or how to do it or what you want to accomplish. But here's the other thing as well.
Mathew,
I know you need to go. I'm
cheap
going
your
to keep
thoughts.
going.
Yeah, I will say bye bye to everyone. We have Suresh who just joined us.
Awesome.
So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. I will leave you with our guests, and Michael, you can just keep going, and I will see you everyone tomorrow at 11
Okay,
a.m.
Mark. You can just dump Suresh in as soon as
Yes,
you can. Yeah.
perfect.
But
Yeah,
but the only
see you.
point that I was trying to make is that he owns the tool, then you limit yourself in this case Salesforce to only being able to build that type of artificial intelligence into the tools you own, because you can't have agency over the tools that you don't own, or you wouldn't want to build it into other things. But Anthropic and OpenAI, and in this case, because we're talking about Claude Tag, can now build the same functionality for Slack into other sort of communication tools. And that's one of the reasons why I think they rolled this thing out, because they wanted to say, oh, yeah, you think you can do that? Here's what we can do. We can do better. Suresh, are you there? Can you hear me? Awesome. Okay, now you're in the main room. So thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Suresh Mathew, founder and CEO at Sedai. Love the name of the company, by the way. And we wanted to have you on because we want to talk about how autonomous cloud optimization can help companies run AI infrastructure with lower cost, higher reliability, and less operational friction. And before we get into the details there, tell us a little bit about the important work that Sedai is doing.
Perfect. So, Mike, Sedai, thanks for having me. And Sedai is an autonomous cloud management solution. So, what we essentially do is manage all the deployments in your cloud with our AI agents. So, typically, whatever you see people are doing with their manual effort, the mundane tasks, we don't just automate it, we make it autonomous, meaning now AI can manage it. So that's exactly what we were doing at PayPal. I was managing the PayPal infra, and this is exactly the same problem statement that we saw there, and thought, you know what, let's try. And it worked even within the industry.
So how can this be tackled with GPUs, and what role does Kubernetes and Kubernetes play in this cost optimization at scale? Right? Maybe you can explain to people that may not understand what Kubernetes and Kubernetes is, just how that in and of itself is a tool for managing all of the sort of implementations of things that are happening inside of your cloud implementation.
Got it. And Kubernetes, for those who do not know much about it, it's an application management platform.
Yep.
That's generally what people use as a vehicle to deploy into cloud. So the resources that you have on your cloud is given to your applications via Kubernetes. Right. So that's exactly how one can think about Kubernetes. So that's why it's important for a normal cloud management tool to understand how Kubernetes operates and see how we can make things better.
Yeah, for sure.
And GPU is another resource
can I
that
ask you
cloud
this? There's been a sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, GPU is a resource that cloud offers, and Kubernetes again offer it through its own bells and whistles to the user. So that's how you can see. One resource is GPU, the other resource is CPU. Everything offered via cloud to Kubernetes, and Kubernetes offers to others.
Got it. How does a business like Sedai, what's the word I'm looking for, impact a company's decision to run things in the cloud versus on-prem or some sort of hybrid implementation there? What level of efficiency or sort of cost benefits do they have? And do you think that would mean that people will run more stuff on the cloud if they can run it more efficiently in this case?
Yes. So what we essentially do is make your cloud management a lot easier with AI. So that's one liner what we do.
Right.
So typically, it's hard for you to really deploy things on cloud and still manage it seamlessly. We step in, we become the AI agent that understands your cloud and cloud deployments, which means we understand the cost, we understand the performance, we understand the latency, all the characteristics of cloud, and then we understand what your intentions are. We marry these two, and we now start managing your cloud, which means now you don't have to worry about your cloud cost, availability, and things of that nature. You sit back, relax, and leave it to Sedai.
And how specific can it get when it's managing the cloud? In other words, can I literally just tell it, here's the amount of money that I want to spend, or here's the amount of compute that I want to use this month or this week or this time in the cloud? And the agentic AI that goes out and manages this for me just goes out and figures out sort of algorithmically how to do that.
That's exactly the deal. So you tell us how much is your wiggle room, and we manage it.
It sounds way too easy, Suresh.
It is hard. So that's why these kind of applications take a lot of time to build and mature. And generally, when that happens, the tier one companies love using such a tool. So if you look at most of our customers, those probably are the largest cybersecurity company in the world, the third biggest bank in the world, right? The largest travel company in the world, right? These guys all, and the second, third, and fourth pharma, right? So all of them use us. So it is important that the platform matures to a level where they start trusting you, right?
Right.
It's not easy, because how long did it take for Waymo to put their car on the road and have that adoption that Lyft has? It took a lot of time.
It did.
Right? And autonomy is new.
So can we make an equivalency between autonomous driving, right, where you can have an accident, or there are things that get in your way, or there are unanticipated potholes or unanticipated road changes, like all these things that Waymo had to deal with, and maybe make an equivalency to cloud management as well, where there can be obstacles in the way that maybe were unanticipated, or maybe some changes that were made in the cloud implementation from your cloud provider. How does the agentic AI through Sedai actually learn about these new things or get around the obstacles as well? Like you said, it's very complex and it's dynamic. It's not static. How does that play out?
Great question. So two things, right? One, we try to really look for these things early in that journey, right? So before it happens, we try to regress it and protect it. And when such a thing happens, we see if we can take an action. If we cannot, not everywhere we can take an action. In such cases, we'll call you ahead of time. So we can see things coming. And if there are things that we cannot take an action, we would have already sent you an alert saying that there is, I need your help.
And what kind of partnership needs to be built, or what kind of coordination needs to be built with the cloud providers itself? And I presume when you talk about cloud, it's like Amazon, so it's AWS, it's Azure, it's Google Cloud, it's Alibaba Cloud, all these sort of cloud providers. What type of relationship do you have to build with them to sort of optimize on your side, just the development of the software that you're using and the agentic AI stuff that you're building, to make sure that it's optimized to work with them as well, and that as they do change things, as they are building this sort of dynamic ecosystem internally, that you're aware of those things as well?
Yeah, most of these fundamental things are already standardized. Right. So when you have a cloud, it's clear that you will have these 10 metrics available.
Got it.
Think of it as like sensors, right? You now know the road condition, you know the lighting, you know the weather, right? So there are sensors, and you know the traffic. So these standard sensors are available almost everywhere. With those sensors, we figure out what are the things that we can do autonomously without a driver in the car. Not everything can be done, like Waymo, right? San Francisco is doable, but freeways are not yet, right? So it's getting there. So it's similar. So we will figure out these are the 5 things that we cannot do. These are the 2 things we cannot do. And that's how we start working on it.
Got it. What are some of the risks that are involved when you start introducing agentic AI into the cloud management for, as you said, like the largest cybersecurity company in the world, the largest travel company in the world, some of the pharma companies? What are some of the risks that get engendered there? And talk about that first, but then specifically maybe finish with what ends up actually being the cyber risks that are there as well, because anytime you introduce like a third party surface into something that's then interacting with another software service that you have, you introduce the possibility that you can have another cyber attack as well.
Perfect. So this is a great question. And the best way to think about adopting AI is to look at the current lay of the land. So today, your cloud, do you have incidents? Yes. Do you have security breaches? Yes. So it is already a tough terrain. And AI is only going to make it better. Now, can AI be always right? What AI can do is when it's wrong, it can say, I cannot do anything. So relative to what we have today, the AI world, the agentic AI world is going to be a lot safer. Now, for Sedai, we have a few patented algorithms that eliminates this risky action. So Sedai has a shield out there that says, oh, these are the 5 actions that my models are not confident, I'm not going to take it.
Why do you think it's going to be safer to introduce the agentic AI when it comes to cloud management, as opposed to, like I said, just introducing another potentially open surface where there could be, do you know what I mean, like prompt insertion and other problems where typical AI has cybersecurity issues?
Yeah, so AI, it is not because AI is smarter than people, it's almost the other way around.
Yeah, it's for sure.
It's because it's the other way around. It's such a mundane task, right? Typically.
Yeah.
And the high IQ people, they get bored. That's where they lose that attention, right? So they forget, you know what, nah, this I know, right? Or these things I don't have to. And these 10 logs I don't have to parse. But the AI, the good thing is it sees that coming and never gets bored. So the good thing is it'll continuously do that and will not make a mistake. So it always is backed by data. And it has the algos that would shield it from making mistakes. That's why it's generally safer than without AI.
What kind of infrastructure has to be built around these AI agents running, let's say, again, inside the biggest cybersecurity company or inside the biggest travel company in the world, where, sure, it's great to have this agentic way to run your cloud implementation, but somebody has to monitor that. Like, what kind of reporting or visibility or just stuff gets fed back to somebody who's either on the CISO, who's on the security team or whatever, so they can actually see what's going on. And if something goes wrong, they can interdict and try to fix these problems. Do you know what I mean? So what type of interactivity is built into the system so that people can actually see and have visibility onto what's actually happening on the optimization side for their cloud infrastructure?
Yeah, more than the reporting, what they build is guardrails. Right? So they say, you know what, this is your limit, your lowest, the right lane and your left lane. You have to stay within this lane. Now that is what they do. These engineers write those rules. So we now know that we cannot go beyond or below this.
Got it.
And generally, when we take an action like Tesla screens, you can see why we are doing what we are doing. We generally don't. It's a transparent AI. There's a lot of work is put in to explain why we are doing what we are doing. So when Sedai takes an action, there's a window that says, you know what? Okay, this is why it thought, yes, it has to do this. And these were the 10 times it did exactly the same, and it fixed the problem.
If these are mundane tasks, and if one of the things that Sedai is trying to do, or does actually as part of the service, is lower the cost of your cloud implementation and cloud usage, how concerned are we about the agentic AI side of it using like the token usage and what those costs are in relation to the cost reduction that gets used from managing the cloud using agentic AI?
Yeah, Sedai by itself, we do not consume tokens from the customer when we do our work. It's a classical AI model. So we don't use LLMs, we use our classical models. Now, as an engine, we also manage your token usage as well on top of all this. We have token optimization as well. and GPU optimization.
Right.
When Sedai comes in, it'll look at your token usage. It'll see, is it used right? Are the calls going to the right models? If not, we will route to the right model. Are you consuming all the GPUs available, or the GR engines are are doing its job? Sims are all busy. We do all those things.
And what is the likelihood of, or the possibility, again, if the tasks themselves that the AI is doing are mundane, what is the likelihood of not using one of the big frontier lab models, right, and their tokenization models, but using just an open source model like DeepSeek or Kimi or Quen or Z, and just replacing the existing infrastructure with one of the open source models?
Yeah, that's my opinion. I think it's bound to happen. So it is just a matter of time. And in most cases, the efficiency that you get from, or the efficacy that you get from here is incremental. And most of the functions would not mean that. And typically, there is a new way of measuring what is an efficacy of your agent. It's not by just what it does. It's really what is the value that's bringing to us. So these two things will accelerate usage.
How do you,
the non-top tier models is my take.
Yeah. Do you think so? But so then if that's the case, because if that's the case, and I don't disagree with you, actually, this is the reason why I asked the question, but I wanted to make sure that I understood the way this was developing properly, and you're corroborating the way I think about this. But if that's the case, if in what Sedai does in its implementation of using these models, if it's relatively easy to switch to open source, and you think that is going to be one of the outcomes here, if that's true, not across the board, but in some cases where, again, other sort of mundane and repetitive tasks are okay to use the open source models, what do you think the impact is on the business model itself for companies like OpenAI and Anthropic?
It's going to be interesting. So let me give you an example. So one model that they talk about is called a council model, right? You have 5 models that's answering the same question, and you have a judge model, right? You ask the same question, and the judge model says, you know what, this model is doing well. Now, there is a school of thought that says, you know what, this judge model would always be the top tier model. That's one option, right? There are ways people think about all those things. Now, I think they will still be relevant. I'm not saying they'll be irrelevant, but the token usage is going to be not at the level that you see today, is my take on it. It will come down a lot, or these guys have to cut the cost down a lot, that it doesn't warrant this effort. Otherwise, the large companies, they're all token maxing. Now we're not talking about millions. We are talking about hundreds of millions. That's not an easy cost for any company to take.
No, I agree with you. And that's one of the reasons why I'm asking. I want to ask as many people as I possibly can about this, because I'm not deploying agentic AI at scale, although I am deploying agentic AI, but not at the same scale that you would be doing, or that companies that you said I would be doing, right? Because to manage their cloud implementations, again, for some of these big companies, the scale is just going to be different. So their understanding about what those costs are going to be are different, and their choices could be different. But the reality is, and I agree with you, that over time, the models to me are going to become commodities. They're going to become commodified. And if they do, people are going to naturally go to the one that is less expensive to use.
Exactly.
Because you're right, having hundreds of millions of dollars cost built into this doesn't seem to make much sense.
Exactly. So that's why we have something called a router. We have a model router, and that decides, you know what, where should I take this question? So we do understand that, and we do give our customers that option to really optimize their token usage already.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think that's going to continue to be a trend, but I do think it's going to be problematic for some of the bigger companies. We just did an entire segment on this because OpenAI, I'm sure you follow this, but OpenAI announced that they developed their own chip today as well.
Yeah.
And once that chip gets put into implementation, I think one of the reasons why is that it's going to give them more control over their costs than some of the companies with whom they're competing. And if that's the case, they may stay in a monthly subscription model while they're letting other companies, like you said, charge for tokens on a token by token basis. And I think that's going to be a death knell for the companies that don't have their own infrastructure that's strong enough to be able to run a subscription model as opposed to the token by token model. What do you think?
100%. 100%.
Okay.
The chip and the hardware is going to be the decision maker here. That
I don't
backbone
disagree with you.
That backbone and internet. So I think that's where the SpaceX strength is, right? So they have the core framework, the core infra, and now they have the network. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, that was one, and again, I didn't want to go down this road with you, but just because you mentioned it, like that was one of the big things that SpaceX did that was really well. 2 massive data centers, right? Colossus 1 and Colossus 2. And to be able to run their own infrastructure, I think is going to be really important. And that was one of the things I believe that OpenAI has done much better than Anthropic, which is going to give them control over costs, is that they've arranged and organized compute in a way that's way more effective and efficient than what Anthropic has done. But that's maybe a conversation for another time. Before I let you go, what is the ultimate sort of end state of AI native enterprises look like when the applications that are running are AI agents and the underlying infrastructure running them is also managed by agents? So there's a lot of agentic activity here, but what does the ultimate end state look like in this case? And then I'll let you go.
Sure. So first answer there is, I think there will be a lot more jobs created because of this. I have a very different philosophy, right?
I agree.
I don't think people are going to lose their jobs. They're going to do a little different job than they were doing before. So the mundane ones, the discrete ones are all going to be taken by AI, which means you have a lot more bandwidth to think through a lot of new things, a lot of new products, a lot of new features, right? And the second thing is, many a times you've seen security as a problem from hackers, right? Now security will be a problem from hacking agents. Reliability becomes a problem from exactly. So that's where things are going to go, which means now agents will have to do many of these tasks. Agents will also start doing some of this unnecessary or unnecessary evil. So right, that's bound to happen. Now, when enterprises get there, their cost efficiency will be a lot better. They will be AI forward, and people's lives would be a lot better. So it's a good thing in general.
Yeah, I mean, can we talk about? I don't disagree with you. Can we talk about this for just another moment?
Sure.
I've probably seen more tech cycles than you have, and in every individual tech cycle, there's always this sort of job apocalypse that's being predicted because this technology is going to replace you and your job. And what has always ended up happening is that you're right. That guy or that gal doesn't necessarily lose his or her job. Their job changes. And in some ways, they get busier because now they have tools that can make them more efficient, which means they can do more of the same thing that they were doing before. I've seen this in my own job, and I'm wondering if you're seeing that too, because I don't disagree with you. I don't think there is going to be this job apocalypse. I think there's more just going to be like there aren't enough people to do all the efficient things that we want them to do in reverse. Like I think the reverse is going to happen, that there simply aren't going to be enough people to do the jobs that need to get done.
Absolutely. Give me one moment. I'll tell you why I strongly believe so and what is the science behind my belief too, right?
Go ahead.
The models that we are thinking about, right, the large ones, they are all probabilistic. And that word has a deep meaning, right? It means it cannot be trusted ever to be right. That is an ever there. There's a word ever there.
I mean,
there is an ever
it's
word
in the name. It's probabilistic, right?
It'll never improve to a place where it is going to get it right. Right. And that is the core the core science or the core technology itself is that way. But it is deceptively close that people think it's going to improve over time and start taking our jobs.
It's a great point.
If it were to do that, it already got 5 years of time. And even today, if you talk to your model, what is the time now? In 5 questions, you can make it think that it is yesterday 9 a.m. It's easy.
Yeah.
Right. So it cannot improve to a point that you're scared of. It can improve. It'll get better, but it'll get better and stay as a probabilistic model. So humans generally, they can take decisions. They are very determined. They know what to do. They'll always be right if they put all the effort in, Right? I'm not saying that they won't make mistakes, but they are right always. If they put the effort, maybe they don't put the effort and things like that. That's a different deal.
Right.
So one has to be never scared of AI or
humans
AI
are not
or
making. Agreed. I was going to say humans are not making the same level of probabilistic calculations that a large language model is making, which allows a human to actually learn over time and get closer to being right and actually become right. Whereas the fundamental architecture and infrastructure of an LLM says you could ask it the same question 5 times and you're always going to get 5 different answers because that's the way it was built. Yeah?
Exactly.
Okay. Fascinating stuff, Suresh. Thank you so much for coming and doing this today. We really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks again for coming and doing this.
Thank you, Michael, for having me. It was fun.
It was fun for me too. My complete pleasure. Okay, bye for now. Okay, that is it again for AGTP Daily. Thank you to all the people that joined us. Thanks you to the people in the chat that corrected me with the round shape of the silicon for the chips that were being made. I don't mind being wrong, but I love being corrected. So thank you for that. Increasing my knowledge base is something that I'm always happy to do. Give us a thumbs up on today's video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. It helps us out in the algo on YouTube. And follow us on all of our socials on X, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. And as always, ask us and stay engaged with us with as many questions as you possibly can. We say at the top of the show that we go live every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be back again tomorrow doing that. My name is Michael Waits. Martin left earlier. None of this would happen without him. I'm going to say goodbye for now and see you again tomorrow.